Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if babies have a built-in preference for eating plants? Well, this new study dives deep into what tiny humans expect about food. Think about it, we learn so much just by watching others, especially when it comes to food, but it is not always straightforward, right? Someone might eat a pretzel, but they definitely don't eat the fork, even though both go into their mouth, so babies need to be selective about what they learn from watching. That is exactly what this study explored. The core question here was whether babies have specific expectations about which things are likely to be edible, with a special focus on plants. This paper, Expectations about Plant Edibility in 6-month-old Infants, wanted to see if babies, even as young as 6-month-old, have a sort of instinct or early expectation that plants, and especially fruits, are food. The reason they thought this might be the case is because over a very long time in human history, our ancestors relied heavily on foraging for wild plant foods. They specialized in eating the more calorie-dense parts of plants, like fruits and roots. So, to test this, the researchers conducted a few clever experiments. In the first one, they replicated an earlier study. They showed 6-month-old babies' videos of someone interacting with two kinds of objects, a leafy plant with little fruits on it, and a similarly shaped artifact, like a fake plant but made from non-plant materials. In one condition, the person in the video would pick a fruit from the plant and pop it into their mouth, saying, Then, they'd do the exact same thing with the artifact. In another condition, they'd pick a fruit and do something unrelated to eating, like put it behind their ear. What they measured was how long the babies looked at these actions. Remember, in this kind of violation of expectations setup, babies tend to look longer at things that surprise them or go against what they expect. And guess what they found? In the eating condition, when the person ate from the plant, the babies looked less. But when the person ate from the artifact, the babies looked longer. This suggests they were surprised or a bit confused by the artifact being eaten. When the action was unrelated to eating, there was no difference in how long they looked at the plant versus the artifact. This tells us the babies weren't just reacting to the artifact itself, but specifically to the eating action being performed on it compared to the plant. Essentially, it confirmed that babies already expect plants to be edible, more so than other objects. But then the researchers got curious. What if it is not just the whole plant, but specific parts like fruits and leaves that babies expect to be food? So, in experiment 2, they took the whole plant apart. They showed babies either a bunch of cherry tomatoes on a small vine versus a similar-looking artifact with fake tomatoes, or they showed a bouquet of leaves versus an artifact with fake leaves. Again, the person in the video ate from these items. What they found here was less clear-cut. For the tomato version, there was a slight tendency for babies to look longer at the artifact being eaten, but only if the artifact was acted upon first. It was a marginal effect, meaning it wasn't super strong. For the leaves, there was no difference at all. Babies looked equally long at the leaves and the artifact, whether they were eaten or not. This indicated that just showing leaves alone didn't trigger the same expectation of edibility as the whole plant did. The researchers wondered if maybe in experiment 2, the babies just didn't strongly connect the detached fruits or leaves back to a plant. Perhaps the context of coming from a plant was missing, so they designed experiment 3 to add that context. In this experiment, before the eating action, they showed the babies an adult picking the fruits or leaves from a larger, whole plant or its corresponding artifact. Then the adult proceeded to eat them, just like before. But even with this added context, the results were, well, null. They didn't find any difference in how long babies looked at the plant source parts versus the artifact. Source parts being eaten. This means that even when shown fruits and leaves being plucked from a plant, babies didn't show a stronger expectation that these parts were edible compared to similar items from the artifact. So, what is the big takeaway here? It seems like 6-month-old babies definitely have an early expectation that whole plants are likely to be food sources. This is probably something that's built into us from our evolutionary past, helping us navigate the world of food safely. However, when you break the plant down into just its parts like leaves or even fruits in a more direct context, that strong expectation seems to fade away or at least become much weaker. The research suggests that the plant-eating expectation is most robust when it involves the whole plant itself. Now, what are some of the limitations or questions left unanswered? Well, it's possible that the edibility expectation is truly only for whole plants. Foraging in the wild involves looking at the whole plant first. Another idea is that the expectation for fruits might be there, but it is subtle and maybe our experimental setup in experiment 3 missed it. The researchers also noted that Experiment 3 was conducted after the COVID-19 pandemic, and they wonder if that might have affected the baby's social learning skills generally, which could have played a role in the null findings for plant parts. It would also be really interesting to see if these findings hold up across different cultures, especially those where plant foraging is a more regular part of life. But overall, the findings strongly support the idea that babies have selective social learning when it comes to food, and that our long history of relying on plants has shaped these early expectations. It's fascinating to see how deeply our evolutionary past can influence even the youngest among us. From my perspective, this study does a great job of replicating a core finding about whole plants, and then carefully explores the nuances of plant parts. The null findings for parts are important too, as they highlight what doesn't seem to be a deeply ingrained expectation. The explanation for why the whole plant might be special, tied to foraging decisions, makes a lot of sense. Future work could play even more with the source material for plant parts, perhaps showing multiple instances of plants being manipulated before judging infant reactions. Or maybe researchers could explore if certain plant types, like ones with bright flowers or obvious fruits, trigger earlier recognition than plain leafy ones. What do you guys think about these findings? Do you see your own kids or babies, having a lean towards plants? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into infant psychology, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more brain-bending science. Thanks for watching.